We are going to do some secrets revealed now for the Midway Tabletop. Welcome my colleagues in gaming, fun, weirdness. We have Mark Johnson and Devin Nelson. What's up, y'all? I'm Marty Kaplan. I'm executive producer of the Midway Tabletop, and boy, we had quite a week, a couple of weeks, in fact, because I was not able to get this going last week. But in the interim, we've had so many things go on. Not only did we keep going on the Eternium Road, and we have like a two lane, an AB 1-2 story now. And you folks were both in the last one that happened on Tuesday at 8.
Yes.
But we did our first on Friday and Saturday, or I'm sorry, Thursday, Friday last week. We did our first Shadow Stories that you guys were both also in.
That was awesome.
Our Little Town, run by Matt Steele, and then even before even that, we started to have the Blackbird Tabletop that Marcus is running, which was really fun. Riot has run last Sunday that will continue a week from this Sunday, and so yeah, like things are kind of rocking. I figured we'd start just with the Eternium Road because that's freshest. What did you guys think of Deeplington?
Devin, you're the guide.
I don't know. It felt very San Francisco in a way. I don't know what it was about it, but it definitely felt like the locales that we're all used to were part of this fantasy world, at least in terms of like the types of people and the types of events that are occurring.
Yeah. Like what are examples that you would draw from real life that like what was the same? I want an example.
Just the whole like sort of burner culture, maker fair, like artisan alley kind of thing.
A little more Oakland, I'd say, than San Francisco. Like it definitely.
Well, nowadays,
warehouses full of junk and such. But yeah, of course, Oakland is now gentrifying.
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying, like back in the day in San Francisco, we
used to be,
warehouses full of craziness.
I miss those days. I think aren't we kind of hearkening to those days in this adventure? Like, there's a large part of this is kind of like a visceral kind of memory that's coming back again in these improvised situations that Marcus is putting us into. It's very therapeutic for me. It's taking me back.
Well, it's interesting. I don't know if you got. Well, we have a bunch of material that Marcus and myself and Scott generated, like a big long talk about like what did we want for Midway Tabletop and for Eternium Road, and what was the sort of basis of the ideas and what's the inspiration and that kind of thing, since we are taking a lot of the Mystic Midway mythos and putting it into a role-playing game context. And so, there's a lot of history, and Devin keeps bugging me for he wants to know it more, all the things. And, I sure need to get on that and write all that stuff.
It's relevant to my character.
And that's, why we want you on because you're amazing and you're like taking all that input and like synthesizing it into like one character perspective. It's totally rad.
I've always been good at doing homework.
Yep. And so I think I pointed you at an essay that I wrote, which was actually the original format of Secret Revealed, which was basically like the after report of the performances, the immersive theater stuff that we did.
Yeah, I saw that.
As the troupe, right? So, or as the ensemble. So that one was about the 2016 performance we did for Edwardian Ball, The Road of Gold, which is they had like 5 factions of different like players, people all dressed up in different things. Like
wow.
The goblins had their goblin market, and I was a goblin. Scott was a goblin. We had probably 35 performers all dressed up as different factions, from people who served the Fairy Queen and the Fairy Queen herself to the Ship of Fools, and like we had some amazing professional clowns and buffoons who were not messing around. Like they mess around because they're fools and buffoons, but they're really good and
professional fools.
Doing like wandering performance in this great context. So we'll see the Ship of Fools eventually at the Eternium Road. And then, we had obviously the fortune tellers, like the folks who, from Lady Fortuna. And so that was a bit of lore that you got to read about, Dev, and people can find that stuff slowly being released in the Discord. There's a lot of interesting discussion and fun stuff about like what's going on in this world, and eventually it's all being written up and captured in a big world building document that will eventually publish as a D&D source book. But yeah, lots more to come, and it's great to have like your guys' perspective, and then have you sort of develop all of these ideas in ways that not I, not Scott, and not Marcus would ever anticipate. So like what was the name of your character, Devin?
6 Petals and 7 Meadows.
It was so great you said that, and everyone was like, huh? And then somebody got it wrong and you had to correct them. I think it was it was really good.
Is it okay if Durgan calls you Freckles? Because he called you Freckles.
That's a funny thing, actually. I had like these weird like blue freckles in my makeup, but it didn't really show up in the like resolution that was on the stream, the Twitch itself. Yeah. I just looked really pale.
That worked though.
Interesting.
It makeup. Very fade.
Lighting is everything. So
I saw them. I totally saw. They were great. I was like totally into like, that was like a pointed characteristic. It was a very specific choice. So
I'm still working on my lighting situation. I'm
hard.
kind of new to this aspect of streaming, and
because it's super easy to blow it out. Yeah, I mean there was we can
blown out a lot.
Yeah, we can send you a there's a video that we like sent around early, I think, on. It was really good. Just a little like tutorial by a guy doing something, basically just describing how to light yourself like decently. And it's funny. The key thing is to not mix like fluorescent light and natural light, because they're different. Blue light, natural light's like blue light, like coming out the back here. I'm doing it right now, so don't do what I say, not what I do.
Make sure.
And then my incandescent light is like right up here. So anyway, but in theory you're not supposed to do that. But anyway, so. Yeah, the overall, like, I was really delighted to not have to do the tech for it. So thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Mark Johnson, our latest
glad I could help.
Tech badass, like making it all happen behind the scenes there. I felt so terrible for you.
In the beginning, yeah. It was like,
in a gleeful way.
And everyone was trying to help. I got 3 different people giving me ideas about how to solve the problem, and they're all sending me in the wrong way, until one person who I forget who it was said, check your Zoom and check your Zoom audio. And it was always fucking my Zoom audio. That was it. I was breaking things while I was trying to fix it. And but 20 minutes later we had the show. So
doing it live. It
could have been so much worse. I could have not had the audio on for the whole show. That would be terrible.
We could have just given up and quit, which was basically like my first show was that exact shit happened, and just trying to get it going, and then finally you kind of get there. And anyway, appreciate
it. Was a great show.
Patience and the patience to everyone.
It came together. It was really, I loved new juice with Devin coming in and all that. It was like it gave us someone else to play to, which I thought was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed the whole craziness. It wasn't crazy enough. No one died. No one was horribly injured. So Durgan's a little disappointed. He wanted it to be like really cool with explosions, but maybe that's next episode, or maybe that's a finale. Yes,
the explosions will come, I'm sure.
Right. I'm expecting Rognovel to be making most of them, but we'll see.
Well, really? I don't know. I guess, alchemy.
Yeah.
It can be.
I built myself to be a little bit of a medic, so I'll be there to.
Oh, good. We'll need that.
They do need that.
Yes.
Cool. So, what are the parts of the episode did you guys stood out for you guys?
Oh, for me, I guess it was fun to come home, like, because there's this weird experience of being from, here from this universe, and then being in the and having kind of knowledge, still kind of negotiating how much do I actually know about everything this person has done. I mean, did I have the same childhood? Do I remember my mom when I was 5? Like, what level of understanding do I have of this world as Durgan versus, Sam? It's a sort of weird notion. So to build the Durgan world a bit by coming home to his workshop and, finding his dog and, that he made, that experience felt like it was a little bit a moment of character definition for me. and it kind of gave me some. And Ragnall and I both coming back home, like it's fun to kind of define your character by going to the place where the character is, because it's sort of like you're of six battles. I am of junk and garbage, right? This is what we are.
So great. I
right?
love that so much.
It's true. And so this is, and I think Marcus is really building the world, especially, referencing Mobius and like all the other kind of, inspirations just makes it all the more fun. I'm in Candyland right now. So it's great.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, I really like, just little bits that I'm just like, okay, I gotta make an emoji for the cup of lard with a hair in it.
Yes.
Orders like the food. I mean, one of my favorite things of the Miss Midway is like the goblin charitable like stuff, just because it's just wallowing in like the worst stuff and like kind of Oscar the Grouching through life.
Right.
Yes. I really, really like that, and it's very well for me personally. It's just very like it makes me feel better about my world when I can just be like, yeah, it's terrible, it's the worst, and so that was a thing that really was a fun piece of the performance and immersive theater stuff that we've done, because it was very therapeutic for people to like talk to the goblins, because they didn't want to hear anything but the most terrible things that have ever happened to you. Because that's what they really feed on. That's their thing, and they take that away from you, or at least take the sting out of it by eating it, right? So having a whole town that's just built on that, I was just like, it's just the best.
I'm just always happy to play with Marcus. I've played with him for a while, and he's always like helped me up my improv game, I think. It's something about the situations that he puts us in always makes me have to like make up a bunch of stuff on the spot, and it's good. I like it.
That's great. So is that about like painting the word picture for you so that you can bounce off of it, or is that more about the emotional situation he puts you in?
More the emotional situation, more like interacting with people and figuring out like how especially like since I built myself like a really weird character and I wanted to play basically an alien, trying to think what somebody who's not of this world would do in these very mundane situations or non-mundane situations.
Well, I think Marcus is really good about interviewing and listening to understand what, like Devin, you were able to kind of offer these like suggestions as sort of, hey, could I go this way? Could I go that way? And he's hearing you the whole time, and he understands what your goals and motivations are. And it makes it so that these visuals that come around that challenge us are informed by that, right? I've learned so much from that experience too. I mean, you've been at it for longer than I have together, and I just really was inspired playing with him. We can talk about Marcus all the time now because he's not here for this episode, so we can say all sorts of really nice things about him without him knowing.
Yeah, definitely talk about him. It's his birthday coming up, so everyone send
happy birthday, Marcus.
The original evildoer. I mean, unfortunately, he's not here.
The hardest working GM I know.
Absolutely. He and I used to throw his birthday party at a mansion in San Francisco. We used to have a thing called the Evildoers Party that was always took a good week of recovery afterwards.
I've heard legend of this.
So we had a good time. That was when we lived with Mark Reinhagen and a bunch of the people who worked for White Wolf and lived in San Francisco for a while. So we shared a house with those guys, and it became epic, crazy partying of the First Order. It was good. Dressing up, playing games, drinking. It was good.
That's awesome.
Cool. So I mean, other I think the Eternium Road. We're pretty well deep into it. We're starting to see like sort of interesting second order information about the world. Is there anything that you guys are hoping for your characters, or just the overall development of the world at this point?
I'm really interested in exploring. I feel like everybody's had this so far in Eternium Road, but like exploring how their magic works and how to flavor their magic, because it seems like everybody has sort of a unique style, and mine's more like empathetic magic. Like I give people power through like telling their story and embellishing their story. Yeah. And I gave myself a bunch of healing spells, and I'm not sure what that looks like yet. Like, what does it mean to heal somebody with interview almost?
Well, I mean, just to throw it out there, I mean, I'd say like it's so cathartic to hear like stories are cathartic. Like stories have put structure on the world and like close the loop. for people in a way that is healing, like mentally a lot of the times. Like, you know, if you have closure, maybe that's your healing spell, you know? Like,
but like how would that work in the pitch of battle? Like if I have a friend who's desperately bleeding out on the ground, like how do I tell them a story in 6 seconds to use my healing word?
I mean, maybe you magically know the last words of their, like, you know, mother or sister or something, and then you tell them what those are.
Or maybe
that's what I'm saying. It'd be fucking amazing. It'd be like, what if you describe the last words of your mom were like so and so, and they're like, what?
You could describe what they're going to do too. You could be like, you're going to stand up and you're going to fight, you know, or you could like kind of do like a sort of like, and you actually, they have a vision of themselves being all like kind of inspired. That's an angle too. But I love the idea of pulling from the past. I think, you know, secrets revealed that you've taken note of.
Nice one.
Yeah.
I see what you did there. That's and you know, of course, a lot of what is happening in the sort of fabric of the Eternium Road like dimension is it's all made of these stories. So it would make sense for your magic to sort of like be able to grab, you know, someone's had their story eaten by the world, right? Like we have this whole mechanic of like exhaustion levels being, you know, granted by the story drain. Well, those stories go somewhere, and we haven't really talked about where those stories go, or like what the whole ecology of that is. Because
maybe I can pull them out of the ether.
So I would say that that's true, right? And the magic of it is that, and that may of course come at a price eventually. Yeah. But the idea that there all these stories and this history and these of people slowly being pulled away, and then you don't have the memory of that anymore, is something I hope that we explore a lot more.
That actually makes a lot of sense because I sort of like gave them a backstory that they were sort of a memoirist, and a memoirist would be somebody who's like trying to preserve somebody's story so that it doesn't get lost to time. So I feel like that makes a lot of sense. So I mean, you know, as a good memoirist does, they embellish the hell out of it and make the memory even better than the reality.
And I would suggest like the role of memoirist or of historian is kind of like in the Eternium Road like story drain situation is kind of like an oncologist in, you know, our world. Like you're trying to preserve things that would erode away otherwise. And of course there are people who exploit all of these the nature of this stuff. So, you know, who are the industrial polluters of the story
goblins
worlds, right? Well, interestingly,
they contribute in a way, but they
I would say
consume.
Totally. I would put them in sort of the fungus and you know, reclamation kind of you know, they're like the ultimate recyclers. The
filter. Yeah, they're the filter. They can handle all the poisons.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
You know, so
I have a theory about the stories and the shadow selves.
Oh yeah.
So
we're the shadow selves. We hadn't had one yet. Oh,
I have a theory about this, and it's just I'm just going to lay it out here. I have no knowledge about this universe, but you triggered me to think about this. Imagine if all of our stories, like everything that's happening in this adventure, is all being recorded and then shown to our shadow selves, and this is their introduction. They just dropped in. They don't have them all, and they've watched them all. They've seen everything, every single story. They know everything about us. They've watched it. And they're here to mess with us because we're going to do something horrible at the end, and they're trying to stop us, and we're the bad guys. So that's my theory.
Say you might be the baddies. Is that the case?
Are we the baddies?
The idea I had for my shadow, I definitely gave Marcus a lot of fuel to mess with in the future. I was saying that like maybe since I have a pseudonym that I write under, that I publish under, that my shadow is also using that same pseudonym, and like the people reading those stories could not identify where that story came from, so that could be potentially very detrimental to me in the future.
I love it. It's like your ghostwriter who's actually hostile to you. Yeah, that could be deadly in the world of the Eternium Road for sure.
We can all change our appearance, all four of us, if we wanted to. We could, you know, rack the spells, and we can all disguise ourselves. I just thought about that. All four characters.
I actually don't have any disguise spells,
but you could get one if you wanted to.
Like
in terms of class, let's say we're at a higher level, we could all just become whoever we wanted to. Theoretically, there could be some interesting games there where we have to go through time, but we don't want to be seen, so we have to be somebody else in order to avoid being seen by ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, it's
could be happening right now.
I mean, I think Moira is set up, you know, to eventually go back to our world just because of her like brother storyline. Like, is there any reason that any of your two characters
Durgan
would go back? I mean, you're kind of an explorer, Devin, right? So you might go back just for that.
Yeah,
Durgan would be worried about her as well. He's worried about her selling her soul to the Thin White Duke or whoever he is.
Toast breath.
Yes.
I'm from the Feylands. I'm not from the mundane world.
It would be an adventure for you.
Yeah, but like when I was reading in the lore for the Midway is that like the Fey lost their home, right? They're like searching for their home.
There's a set of Fey that this isn't fully developed yet, but there's a set of Fey who are kind of trapped in because they get confused by the lack of stories. Like the Fey are particularly sensitive, like I would say, to because they're so long lived and they are sort of inherently magical, and the way that the stories affect them is a bit different in the Eternium Road. Like their exhaustion levels are the same as everyone else's, but in terms of just special effects of it, like having Fey get sort of confused and wander, and so they become there's a bit more danger for them to basically meet the fated and become one of the fated. But they have an advantage. There's a background that is like the wandering Fey, where some Fey like figure out how to communicate better with the fated, and they can start to access that big set of stolen stories to interesting effects.
I saw that background when I was making the character. I picked a charlatan background.
Yeah. Which makes good sense. But you're not. I mean, a wandering Fey. I'm imagining it like, they're really more of a La Llorona or Banshee or kind of like a ghostly, like almost not there character that is still is basically like right on the edge of becoming a fated, so that they are halfway in that world and they can actually talk to the fated and either help them or get resources for them, but they're sort of on like the very edge of what existing as a conscious being in the Eternium Road is.
Yeah, that actually works pretty well with the like lore ideas that I came up with for my character, and like I could potentially be pushed down that path really easily because what I decided was that like Aladrin don't have like nuclear families. They're just like they crawl out of the dirt from underneath the tree and then they just like wander out into the world kind of already half formed. Yeah. And they go out to find their purpose, and all of the Aladrin are like associated with a season. So like summer, winter, fall, or spring. Yeah. I was presenting as summer when y'all met me, but I came up with this thing called precession, which is like sort of a genetic disorder that some Aladrin have, where like their season is always changing, like their soul can't like attach to one. So I think that makes me particularly vulnerable to getting lost, because like who I am slightly changes every day. So it's like even harder to hold on to my singular identity.
Right. Your stories anchor you into your consciousness. But yeah, it's very interesting. I love just exploring this kind of thing. Very excited to like see like how it comes out. I mean, I think that there's lots of fun side stories to have, and I actually contemplated. Well, I don't know. I guess maybe we'll try it. I would actually like to run a game that is just here's the alternate games that I want to run for in Eternium Road. I want to run a game that's just the Shadow Cells. Everybody, you're okay. Now we're just Shadow Cells, and you guys are playing that, and we explore that in like. I would want to do it in more of like a real improv, like theater of the mind way, and just have like scenes and people like talking about scenes, and then cutting to another scene, and kind of really organize it more like it's a montage or a film. Will you tell us about Death of Hippie? You got. We'll talk about that in a minute. Yes. All right. Yeah. But yes, the that's a shadow story. I guess that's a story of shadows, but it's in the happy-go-lucky world of Eternium Road. Another one in another story line or exploration of the Eternium Road. It's slipping my brain now, but I totally had it and it was great. I guess we'll get back to that. No, was let's see. What was I going to say? We had the thing where you go back. We had the thing where you talk about your shadow stories.
Playing your shadow selves as a scenario where we're going from room to room.
Yeah,
like a film.
Yes. Anyway, so moving on. Yeah. So the other fun things we can kind of do in that world are around. So this is another thing that's just sort of a sideline, but very interesting because we have a couple of artificers that kind of sent me down a road of like, okay, I'm gonna look at the D&D rules for making magic items and figure out like the range of story magic items there are and how to make them. And so we've seen a few things, and you have some in terms of the treasures that you got from that wizard. But I'm trying to put the story stuff in the context of like the official D&D making magic items thing. So you have like how to make
some
storybooks, how to make the trinkets, how to make all that stuff.
Sure, gotta do that. Yeah.
So that to me is like interesting, and it is based on like the story stuff of the world and where it goes and what the economy of it is.
Can we have our fans like make items, like suggest items? Like, hey, maybe Six Petals could get like a little amulet that does this, and then it's like a way for them to feel like they're contributing. It'd be fun.
Yeah, totally. And I've been coming up with magic items that are based around like memories and like I think it's a really interesting angle to come at magic items with, because it sort of it's a forcing function to, instead of going like +1 sword, yay.
Yeah.
Like this sword is the memory of someone, to go dark, like murdering their spouse. So that is what this is made of. Like, and
it's very Elric of Malnabone.
It takes a shape, right?
Right.
And so it kind of has that built-in like a name and a story behind it, because it doesn't exist unless it has those things in the Eternium Road.
Yeah.
And so you can sort of apply that, like, hey, this is like the happiness this is the laugh of a small child in the form of an amulet that is your amulet of protection, or
right.
Whatever you want. And so kind of using that as a way as a lens to look at how magic items work and where they come from, and then, how they are made is interesting to me. And so I've got a bunch of stuff written up for that'll go into the supplement.
Yeah, I've always found the idea of a +1 sword really boring. And irritating.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Grognard's gonna Grognard.
Yeah.
I don't know what that means.
It's a type.
It's
a type of player. Tell us what a Grognar is, Marty. How would you describe Grognar?
Well, okay, so way back in the day, D&D was a war game, and there's a set of players who still play it as a war game. Like, and so a Grognard is someone who's like, drinking is just all about that kind of like war gamey, crunch only, barely any storytelling, just playing a war game, for any kind, like a historical reenactment type stuff, or any kind of like super hardcore on the tabletop measuring inches kind of line of sight based kind of game, which, hey, I love. I played in tournaments of like 40K and Warhammer and like all that kind of stuff. I paint my minis, but that's not really the kind of storytelling we're doing here.
No, it's like the opposite.
Yeah, and so
in the gaming continuum, it's like chainmail, right? Like
I've always found D&D to be a weird game in the terms of like it can't really decide if it's that or if it's a storytelling game, and it kind of falls short at doing both simultaneously. Like I still have a blast doing it, but like I feel like for war games, there's a lot of better games that are for war games, and for like storytelling games, there's a lot of better games for storytelling. Yep. And D&D kind of is this weird middle ground, which I think is good for like introducing people to the game, because like for people that are not familiar with those kinds of games, it's like an easy way to kind of experience both sides of it.
Yeah. It's like centrism in politics. It's kind of the same thing.
Well,
that's where you get them.
I would say that I would put, if I was going to put my finger on a reason, it would be that it is 40 years old, and it has grown organically from 1968 to now, and so it's been so many people to so many so many things to so many people for so long that it just is a giant tangled mess. 5e was a really good attempt at pruning it, but you know, the eras of D&D that I'm seeing, just because, hey, I have a giant collection of D&D that goes all the way back now, that we're going to be auctioning to benefit the Mystic Midway and the Eternium Road, a collection of D&D books that I've just been seeing over time and seeing how things have changed and all the different people. I mean, it's crazy. People who like started their careers have now died. Like they've just ended their natural lives being part of the D&D, like, you know, Dungeons and Dragons writers or artists or product managers or like whatever.
And all the games that they inspired, like all the games we know today. There's also the nostalgia, like we're talking about the warehouse years in SF in the 90s, right? That's nostalgia. And me playing D&D when I was 13 is just like fully present in Stranger Things, right? It's like, that's me, you know. I'm like, what the hell? They're robbing me of my childhood and they're just putting it on the screen. But that also makes us feel this like weird commonality. We have a shared dialogue, you know, that transcends time because we're still fighting goblins.
Yeah, you know? And it's, you know, this representation in media over time is super interesting.
I mean, my God, yeah.
The satanic panic of the 80s, like deeply affected. I mean, it's D&D is part of the culture of the United States and the world now, right? It's really interesting.
Do we get to own that? Do we get that like jazz, or is it like?
Who owns British jazz then? You want to pontificate on that?
Don't want to have that conversation right now, but as a geek, I think I can talk about like, where did this start? Like, was it really, like, you would know a lot, like who gets to have the national pride?
Well, I would say that it, you know, in English, so in English speaking countries, it's definitely the roots of it are there, but of course, like before that, there's lots of different other games that were played, like, you know, theater.
Egypt. Yeah.
You know, I mean, there's that Shakespeare guy, or whoever that was.
Sure.
And then before that, you know, oral traditions period that occur all the way back to, you know, Neanderthal and early primitive.
When they did improv.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
I mean, you know, when First Peoples put on masks and did, you know, and embodied gods and as part of the shamanistic or as part of shamanic ritual, like that story. We're doing that. Like your Aladrin character and your goblin, like they're essentially the same as, you know, putting on a coyote outfit and telling Coyote's tale to a bunch of folks, you know, in the village.
I like the idea of a caveman like saying, "Me roll 2 rocks because me have +1."
Yeah, well, it was a little more. I guess it was more improv back then.
I don't know, man. I could see them doing some cool stuff with little figures. You know, I mean, just little iconic ones, like in
those painting on the
Clash
wall,
of the Titans style kind of situation. You know, playing God.
I mean, effigies were the original miniatures.
Right. I think you put it all together and you could have some. There's a whole new field of anthropology. I'm sure that exists already, and there's a big library, right? I saw some video of the huge library in England, and it's got all the games of all time, and he's got the original game, like from 4000 BC and shit.
Yeah, some of those early dice from Babylonians and Egyptians. Like, it's pretty. Well, I mean, you know, we definitely are always. Play is an essential part of our brains. Like that's kind of one of the things that uplifted us essentially from you know, wherever we were before in sort of pre-conscious, you know, the bicameral mind started to happen and we started to have thoughts that came from the gods, and right, so that's kind of, you know, they told us that those were the angels and devils on our shoulders until we figured out until we integrated a bit more, and now we're turned it inside out and we're kind of taking those pieces, putting them together and playing those things for fun.
Well, and for moral
drama.
practice, right? And for moral practice, there's an aspect of us sort of saying, well, what if I was like this and I did this? What would happen? It's be like, you die. Like
yeah.
You sort of figure that out a little bit.
Yeah, well, you model the universe in your head and then practice things, and that's play, right? Yeah,
right.
Yeah. Cool. Well, so okay, let's talk about a whole model universe that you guys lived in for 6 hours.
Oh God, yes.
The first Shadow Stories,
Yes.
our little town basically had you all essentially have a character that with a document and a set of stats and that kind of thing, but more importantly, kind of what you did and the moments that occurred, or your life that occurred right before you found yourself in this little town. So tell me a little bit about what it was like for you guys. I know you attended a sort of pre-meeting, and we had a good conversation about like the game system and that kind of stuff. And then we picked characters. So tell me a little bit like what that was like with Matt Steele running it.
Well, also big props to Fiona for switching characters with me last minute. Yeah. I was not feeling comfortable playing the violent police officer.
That was tough. I think I was lucky. I mentioned that earlier as well. I was lucky because my character had flaws, but not really much. He was actually a good guy.
Well, talk a little bit about like what. So what happened? Like you guys were presented with like a bunch of like 6 images. The games.
Right.
The players were presented with 6 images and told nothing else.
Yes, and we all just sort of picked based on what we thought we might be able to perform or do. And I remember it was Devin was a little wary about playing a cop, and it was sort of like, okay, I guess I will. But it was clear that like even then, and I'm really glad you switched and she worked it out with you, because I don't think you would have enjoyed the game.
Well, also, I brought up my concerns about the backstory of the cop to Matt, and he reflected on it and was like, you know what, like that's a good point. Let's change this up a little bit.
Oh, good. Oh, good, because it was more brutal. It was worse than.
It was worse. Yeah.
Oh, so that's a great X card moment there.
Well, I found it fascinating. It was like a pre-X card, which is really
perfect. That's ideal. That was a good call.
So it like that kind of feedback I thought that was very interesting because we were hoping that everyone could play, and then we were trying to get maybe even a replacement at the last minute and all this stuff. And so as a producer, I was really glad it worked out, obviously. But for me, it's very interesting to have that feedback loop happen where the world's certain stuff is going on, and we are going to do a stream that is going out into the world. It's a public game, and people who are playing characters in there are concerned about how that looks, but also how it affects them internally, because of course when you do role playing, like a big difference between that and like a just a regular board game or any other kind of entertainment is that you identify with that person you're playing. And Devin, you did not. I mean, for great.
I didn't want to make my debut
reasons,
as a dirty cop,
right? So
Fiona's typecast as a cop now.
I know. She's actually in a TV show as a cop.
It's going to be your fault for typecasting her as a cop all the time.
I was pretty excited when I looked over the Mubarak sheet because I was like, oh, this guy's just kind of me.
Yeah, that's pretty. My dude was a lot like me too. It was easier to play, a know-it-all kind of guy who's sort of pedantic and paternal. I had to find some flaw to make him like a little bit tiresome and awful, because everyone's supposed to be awful in some way, but it wasn't written in the backstory. So I hope I wasn't splaining too much, but that was kind of the character.
My flaw was that I was clumsy.
That works.
I mean, so talk about what was on the sheet, like for both of you.
I mean, I just
really. Go ahead.
No, I'll go for it. My guy, it just said that he was Brown University professor. Students like him. He encourages them to explore the unknown and know the truth. So he's like pretty much a personification of like philosophy in its most positive Western European form. But he was probably harassing people. He was probably, just not actually, maybe an alcoholic, most likely. There's probably some level of corruption there, but I felt like I didn't want to go into that because in the end, we were all just playing a version of ourselves because, I mean, as far as I was concerned, we were all dead and we were just this sort of like iconic representation of who we were.
That's what your player thought?
That's what me as a player that's my player thought, is that you've got this. One of the cards I got was, if no one knows who you are, then you can be anyone. That was the little hint that I had, which was supposed to give me a hint to tell me that Lisa's character was a Nazi, but I didn't pick that up. And that was another thing that was like, another kudos to Devin on that one. The ending was so quick and so short. And it's like, okay, make up your mind. What are you going to do now? You're going to get on the ship and join this like save the earth thing? And Devin is just, I'll hand the mic to you. You just said, nah, fuck it.
Well, so Devin, let's start with Mubarak as like, so what did you have on your sheet for that character?
Well, in terms of like how I identified with him, he was just like sort of an awkward, nerdy dude with like a pretty niche talent that was, trying his best to make that niche talent into something. And luckily had supportive people in his life to push him in that direction. So that's kind of how I identified with him. One slightly disappointing thing, before we played, I did a bunch of research about tarot, which didn't end up coming into play at all.
Oh.
I got to like throw one little tarot fact in there.
Yeah. Well, there was a magic shop that we named the Midway Magic Shop.
That's right. And there was a Blackbird bar too.
There's a Blackbird in there.
Yeah.
I was gonna say I'm moving and I'm going through a bunch of my stuff and I found my old Crowley tarot deck.
Nice. That's my favorite deck. Yeah,
it's great. Nice. I'd lost it. I have the little book that tells me how to read them, so I'm going to do tarot readings now.
Yeah. That's a great deck. I mean, I've used that one, and then there's a companion book too. But like the story behind that deck is very interesting. It's the lady who painted it was one of his acolytes, and there was a lot of drugs and sex and ridiculous shit that went on, but her paintings are amazing. Like that deck is truly an advanced piece of work for sure.
I was worried about the like spiritualism aspect, just because like that's not the type of person I am. Like I have degrees in science. I'm a science teacher. I'm a very like cold, hard, rational type of person in real life. But then when I was like doing research about tarot, I kind of learned some stuff about it that was like, oh, this is actually different. This is more just like
it's structured,
sort of this introspective thing. It's less about like believing in magical forces and more just about like thinking about common themes and common symbolism and how they might apply to your life and like how you can reflect on the themes in your own life. And like, especially because it's so open to interpretation. It's not like astrology where it's like, this is your moon sign and this is what it means or whatever. It's like, okay, well, here's an image on a card. What is that image like? What does that make you think of? What is the first thought that comes in your head when you see this picture? And like having that be more of a impactful thing. It was more artistic than spiritual in a way that I really liked.
Yeah, it's meant to be a prompt. I mean, and that's why, we kind of made the story cards like, as a Tarot 2.0. And so, one day this will be widely available. But they're really meant to, I don't know, you can compare it to a mentalist's trick. Where, you have like a mentalist go up on stage or I guess we found out that you used to be a preacher as well there, Mark Johnson. So this might be a preacher's trick as well, where, you say general stuff and then somebody responds and then you dig, you go a little bit more specific, but not too much. So that everyone's like, wow, it's really talking about me.
I wasn't exactly a preacher per se. I was an evangelist. Yes.
And the difference is?
Technology.
Good. Yeah.
But it's very much the same. Essentially, you're doing the same techniques to sell technology that you would to sell Jesus or Vishnu or whoever you're kind of pitching. It's a similar strategy.
It's hilarious that it's similar, and I never really thought about it that way. I actually thought that when you said evangelist, this was on the chat in the Discord.
Well, I can't marry people.
I actually thought you were
like a praise.
A Pentecostal.
No, not at all. No, actually, it's I'll tell you more about it. There's a lot to that whole world. That was me 20 years ago. But I am in the Church of Subgenius, and I can marry people. On,
I am too.
I paid my $20. Praise Bob.
Yeah.
Or kill him, however he's behaving.
Speaking
today.
of cards, I think I'm really glad that I didn't share my card because I think that had a big impact on this.
We're all one of us. Yeah, all of us are going to die, but one of you,
only one of you will live with the card that I had, and I feel like if I had shown that early on, things might have gone a lot differently.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, he was trying to pit us against each other. That was the whole point, is to pit us against each other.
Well, I think So the spoiler is, of course, that it's a simulation that they're in, although it's a simulation that's material, is built by some to be unnamed race in the Lovecraftian kind of vein, and the sort of a lot of people were pulled out of time by this race, just in a Futurama kind of way. Nothing too crazy. It's just they put you on ice for a while.
Right.
And to me, like, that revelation point was really like a wonderful like pivot where everyone was like, what the hell's going on? What the hell? Blah, 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 blah. And then, the night manager shows up and goes like, oh, well, I'm afraid your wife has been dead for 200 years.
Yes. I wish we had more time.
Great.
I wish we had more time after that reveal. I felt like we were like, oh, I wanted to do more once we had more of that. Like, I want the next episode.
Yeah.
There was just so much we could have done knowing what we knew at that point. And we were kind of moving out. We were kind of a half hour out and didn't get a run with that. But it's a great hanger for it.
So I think that
it took us too long to get out of our rooms.
I wish, unfortunately, Matt's not here to talk because we missed last week. He would have been, but he's run it many times. So the timing is what he has designed. So he really wants people to be just painfully wondering what the hell is going on for as long as possible, and just twisting that knife for long. It's just more and more and more.
I could feel it. It was.
And I mean, it's a fascinating game because of that, because he is very consistent with that. And then like the revelation after is like,
what?
Okay, I mean, it's crazy and like obviously like cool thing, but it's not the point, which I think is actually speaks a lot to cosmic horror, because usually what happens in a cosmic horror build or book or story is that like it builds and builds and builds,
and then it's too late,
builds, and then the outsider, then you're in the outsider and you're like, you see yourself in the mirror and then it's done like in 2 paragraphs.
Yeah,
I'm curious what's happened with. If there was past Mubarak, so how they responded, because he seemed to get the short straw in that whole deal. Because it was like, okay, first off, your wife's been dead for 100 years. Everybody you know and love is dead. And also your superpower is to feel everybody else's pain so they don't have to. It's like, why do I want to be a part of this?
Kill me now.
Yeah, well, let's see. If it was me, well, actually, let's do that thought experiment. Okay, we can all think about like how we would run the next hour of that. So, say you go on a solo adventure, an hour of that. How would you run that? Like, what would happen? I guess I can go first.
Go ahead. I was going to say I'd chase after him and say, "Yeah, this one's a fascist. I will have nothing to do with him." And then he would come chasing after him after just sort of like checking things out. So. Devin's running off and he goes on his adventure, and maybe I could come along. But what were you gonna say?
Oh, I would run it more like you would go on a cosmic journey that would end in your like hanging out at the court of, like, you would start to feel the emotions of the court of Azathoth at the end. Like you would go on like they'd be like, here's your space mead. Okay, get on the back of this Bayaki. And now you're going into worlds beyond cosmic, and especially if I was writing it, it would just be like a weird fiction like journey through the universe, and then ending up in the court of Azathoth, and you just going bonkers. That's what I would do.
That sounds awesome.
Especially if I could get like Mobius to animate it.
Well, who is fighting? Like who's the war with? Like
the war is between the Migo, who you were in the clutches of, and the Elder Things.
Okay.
The cylindrical, Tekelili guys.
So the fungi
parents of the Shoggoth.
Okay.
I think one of my favorite moments was when I punched the night manager and he was made of clay.
Oh, so good, so good. Just yeah.
Kudos to Matt. I hope we can have him on another time. I'm sorry he couldn't be here, but I just really liked his style. I think he's great.
Oh yeah, no, he's going to be playing in. Let's see, what time we got? Okay, we should talk about next stuff. So coming up on Saturday night, coming right up. Good thing it's Morkborg. So Morkborg is a Scandinavian black metal, like old school dungeon crawling game that is like meant to be just brutal and violent and gory and just awful, and it's going to be super fun to play that. I'm going to run that a little scenario called Churunzun with the folks, some of the folks. So Matt's going to play. I think Devin, you're in, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think so, and then Jessica and Marcus. So we're gonna play a few hours session that will most likely end in doom if I'm doing my
Else.
job.
I thought it wasn't Matt playing.
I think I asked Matt to play. Oh, is it not? Who is it?
Anyway, I am not.
You're not. Who else did we get? Anyway, so we'll see. We'll post one from about that. But anyway, Morkborg is a beautifully designed game. It's got an amazing aesthetic. I think we're going to be doing death face makeup. It's just going to be dumb and great. And going to be all about the apocalypse. So it's going to be really fun.
How much do I need to know going into it? Because I ordered the book, but it's not going to come in time.
Yeah, I wouldn't worry too much. I mean, if you look at the website, it has so much stuff. There's a lot of stuff on there, and that's perfectly great.
Watch Metalocalypse or whatever.
Yeah, that's a good primer. It's a good primer. The main thing to know about the world of Morkborg is the fact that like there's basically like in the book there's a couple of it's almost a Bible looking page. It's like Revelations. And they have like, it's all numbered like, 1 6 1 or 1 1 1 2 1 3 all the way to 7 7. 7 7, that's the apocalypse. That's when everything ends. The world is destroyed. Everyone dies. That's it. But there are things that happen before that. And so that one of those things happened in Chorunzun, which is a meteorite streaks across the sky and causes havoc and madness and that kind of thing. And you guys are going to be right in the middle of that. So that's
is that like Thundar the Barbarian? That's like the origin story of Thundar the Barbarian.
Yeah, sure. I mean, Thundar is definitely a feel of it, I think.
Cool.
There's just reality is coming apart at the seams, and you're just trying to exist in it, and maybe you're mad and you're trying to do things. Maybe you're worshiping weird gods. Maybe you're anti-worshiping gods. Maybe you're just a criminal trying to get along. Maybe you're a farmer. There's lots of different possibilities, but the point is...
Have you heard of a game called Troika? It's a new game.
Is it Russian?
No. Oh. I feel like it's probably perfect for Midway. It's like a really weird, like D&D-esque game where you roll up random characters. A lot of them are very surrealist and abstract.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be sort of like a surrealist fantasy journey kind of game.
I'll check it out.
That's cool.
Yeah, I just got this guy. So Recommendos. So anyway, that's what's happening on Saturday night. 8
cool.
to
I don't need to make a character, do I? It's like random generated characters.
You can pick characters, but yeah, you can random generate it too. There's some characters on the website that you can just grab that are sort of pre-made.
I'll check that out right after we get.
But it's like very random. Anyway, my recommendo is this this. Oh God. Come on. Yeah. Index card RPG. So this one, I got it because we were kind of looking for a way to have a hybrid, but in between like the tabletop, like Battle Mat and Theater of the Mind, and they have like a little system, and then it's like a generic system that you can use if you want or not, for any theme really. That kind of just you sketch like the areas that you're moving through or the social situations that you're moving through, and that's just your map. And so you're in that place, and you can move between places or shoot beyond different places. But it's an abstraction that's very interesting because it can represent either physical space or social space. So it's a cool little thing. Index card RPG core by Runehammer Games. That's my
ICRPG.com. I see. I just looked it up.
Cool. So we might use that to run something in the future. The next things that are happening Sunday, we're gonna have the really ridiculous Blackbird Dungeons and Dragons game. They are a bunch of mostly drunk bartenders who with the gift of gab, and they're having a good time playing D&D for the first time. That's Sunday at 2 p.m. PST. And then, of course, Tuesday we will return to the Eternium Road with a bunch of, I want to say daddy issues, but more like smashing the patriarchy, because everybody has issues with that in terms of needing to do that. So that'll happen at 8 p.m. On Tuesday. And then the week after, we will see. It maybe need to push out a little bit, but I will be running at some point soon a Delta Green historical game called The Death of Hippie, which is all about the death of the Summer of Love in 1968, and about how you shouldn't take the brown acid. So that will occur on a Friday and a Saturday, like a three-hour session, 8 p.m. kind of thing. Tentative date is a week from tonight. Okay. That is what I got. How about you all? What's going on with you?
Oh, just in general plugs.
Yeah.
Check out my band, the Y-Axes. We are a local San Francisco band making like synth rock, power pop, kind of slightly prog influenced pop rock and roll.
Cool.
Yeah.
When's your next show?
We've had some weird quarantine issues in terms of like having to, stay not practice, but we've been working more on finishing our latest recordings that we did.
What's the URL for you guys?
It's just the Y-Axes everywhere. We have like a website, but the website's just sort of a landing spot to like connect everything else.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Spotify.
Cool. On the socials.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got nothing to pitch. I just want to introduce Midge, my dog. This is Midge. Hi.
Hi.
So Midge will be inspiring my Steel Defender.
Oh, nice.
And probably a little bigger, more metal version of her. And I'm moving this weekend, so I'm going to be kind of going nuts for the next few days.
That's the funnest thing ever.
Yes, and I won't be around Tuesday. I'll probably watch, but I don't have to worry about Tuesday so much.
Yep.
All moved by then, so that's all very exciting. That's all I have to talk about.
Okay, cool. Well, then, thanks, everybody. Thanks for Devin. Thanks, Mark, for coming in talking.
Sure.
Looking forward to another amazing week of Midway Tabletop ridiculousness. It's going to be fun. So catch the next show, 8 p.m. tomorrow night. Morkborg. If doom is your poison, we got it in spades. All right. Bye, everybody.
Later.
Bye.